Welcome back to the 411 on Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Lovell. With me once again, Steve Cook, and we are here to talk about a lot of things in the world of wrestling because, Steve, it was a very interesting weekend in wrestling. We knew it was going to be, certainly with the debut of AEW Rampage. You had the, of course, TripleMania, several notable, I guess for traditional American wrestling fans, several notable matches there for people who are in some of these promotions we talk about regularly. And then you also had the New Japan Resurgence show. It was just a very stacked and packed weekend. And as we saw, the one thing that we all just, predicted, I guess, Steve, this time last year, if we all made our August, the weekend of, I guess, August 14th predictions, we all said that the Nature Boy Ric Flair was going to be in AAA chopping Kenny Omega inside of a ring. We all called it, right?
With Andrade, of course, right by his side. I mean, I think everybody definitely saw that one coming. But yeah, and we'll kick off right with that because that definitely was something that, it doesn't come as a huge surprise because we knew when Ric Flair got released that there was a pretty good chance that once he started making wrestling appearances that Andrade would be involved on some level due to the future son-in-law relationship going on there. All good, no problems with that. We probably didn't expect it this soon because I don't know what I don't suppose he had much of a non-compete clause. But then again, does the non-compete clause does that count for Mexico? Because
that's what I was thinking about.
AAA can't even promote their shows in America. So that's part of the issues AAA is faced with the whole relationship with AEW and all stuff with Kenny Omega's champion. There's this whole thing where they cannot promote the United States. They can't air their shows here. They can't do anything here. And we have to find these shows through the Cubs fan or whatever kind of streaming might find. Is how we keep track of this stuff. So as much as people want to say, oh, well, the Mega Championship isn't treated as well as some of the other titles, AEW can't really do anything with it. Because that could get them in trouble with the folks behind Lucha Underground. There's just a lot of stuff going on there. So, okay, I went off the ramp there to jump on that for a second. But anyway... So the big match on Saturday, of course, Kenny Omega defending that title against Andrade. And Andrade was widely expected to win that championship. And I don't know if Ric Flair is expected to be there, but it was nice to see him. He got a great response, as you'd expect. And you know what? Back in the day, I was one of those guys. I was not a fan of, senior citizens coming in and beating wrestlers up. But man, did I mark out when I saw Ric Flair chopping Kenny Omega, putting Conan in third quarter. I loved it. I thought it was great. And maybe part of it's because it's Ric Flair, and Ric Flair usually gets kind of a pass with me as far as stuff like that goes. But it's I guess the way my sensibilities have changed over years is that I like seeing these guys come out, and I like seeing them get to do good stuff too. Because one of the main reasons Ric Flair left WWE was because whenever he appeared on WWE television, he would be hanging out with Charlotte or hanging out with Randy Orton, and eventually they would turn against him, and eventually he would cry. And I didn't want to see that. It was sad, and Rick knew that's not what people want to see either, so now he gets to go out and do his own thing and do stuff like this where, Ric Flair chopping Kenny Omega, great piece of business. Love it.
Yeah, you could be Ric Flair, a legend who's out chopping Kenny Omega in another promotion, or you can be on WWE Raw with your daughter's foe acting like, possibly the father of the child and all this. I mean, it's just it's a completely...
Yeah, what a choice, right?
Yeah, like, that's a pretty easy choice, I think, if you're Ric Flair, someone who has, like you said, it's sort of been that way over the past, several years at this point with him at WWE. And I think to have, and we've seen it all over Twitter, right? Like, Rick has been tweeting like crazy, showing himself in the gym and just talking about how he's, excited about all these different possibilities and everything. And you can't blame the guy because, I mean, it's just one of those things where do I think Ric Flair's going to wrestle in AEW? No. But also, I do think if he stays in WWE, where is sort of the evidence that he's going to be anything more than what you said, where he may be someone hanging around Charlotte, hanging around Randy Orton in a pregnancy angle with Lacey Evans, or something like that. You just and that's the theme, right? And that's what everyone's talked about is, whether it's Ric Flair, whether it's Mark Henry, Paul White, anyone like that. Like, these are all, I mean, Christian's another example. Like, it's a perfect example, and we'll get to him in a minute. But it's like these guys, there's reasons they left, and obviously the state of WWE, that's a whole different discussion. But I mean, and again, in what other universe is Ric Flair going to have the opportunity to do what he did on Saturday night in Mexico? But he's not going to get that opportunity in the WWE universe. We know that.
No, definitely not. And just fun times, fun stuff to see. Darn good match too, by the way. Not exactly surprising considering Kenny Omega's involved. But to be honest, we have not seen Andrade quite that level in quite some time. I know back in NXT he got a ton of love, ton of respect. Matches with guys like Gargano and things like that. He didn't really show that much on the main roster to me. I don't recall the long list of classic Andrade main roster matches. So, he kind of took a tumble there for a while, and we kind of forgot about how good he could be. And on Saturday night, he got to show it in a match against Kenny Omega and it's something that's been talked about today where apparently, as they say, the original result was going to be Andrade winning the championship, but they decided against that. And frankly, I don't blame them for deciding against that because Omega's not under contract with AAA, but neither Andrade's not under contract with them either.
Right, it's two AEW guys. Like, what's the difference?
It's the same. Yeah, it's two AEW guys. So it's basically the same thing. And if you're gonna have two people in the same scenario, I think Kenny Omega's the better guy to do that with. And let's be honest, if you ask a regular AAA fan if it's a problem that their mega champion is not around very often, it's like, well, our champions who are here never defend titles anyway. Yeah. Title defenses they only have a 30-day rule there in AAA or in Mexico in general. Your title defenses do not happen very often. It's one of those things that they build up to for a very long time. So Kenny not defending the title that often, not a big deal.
What did you think of the match? I thought it was good. Like you said, there was a lot of people, probably us included, that were saying, all right, this is Andrade's first, big sort of, because again, when you look at it, like this was Andrade's this was his sixth match since October of last year after he lost to Angel Garza in 2 minutes and 30 seconds on Raw. Like, he's only had 6 matches since, and obviously this was the biggest one he's had, but I thought it was very good. I mean, I know people will talk about, the Flair and Conan stuff and all this, but the words you said a minute ago was exactly what I thought. Like, this was just fun. I didn't expect this to go out and be a 5.5 star match or anything, but it was just fun, and I thought that, Andrade really stepped up, and I thought it was a really good match.
Absolutely. And I saw some of the criticism as well, but no, I had no issues with this match. I had no issues with the Gaga, and I know there were some people who had took issue with the referee, but let's be honest, if you know Lucha Libre, you know that the whole thing of the heel referee, the Rudo official. And
they did it in the Deonna Purrazzo match, wasn't that? I think that was one of the themes, like in the Purrazzo Fabi Apache match. Like, that was the same sort of scenario. So
that's what he does. Heel the Purrazzo has been there for a very long time, and that's the sort of stuff he does. And maybe if you don't watch Lucha Libre very often, you don't get it. But if you are a regular Lucha fan, you know that that's what comes with the territory.
Yeah. I thought so too. I mean, I thought it was a good match, and I mean, like we say, I don't think everything. When you're adding Ric Flair into this match, again, it was just a complete surprise. I think for a lot of people, I thought they set it up really well. Where they do the little backstage thing, they tease it before you don't just have Andrade come out cold, and all of a sudden here's Ric Flair behind him. You set it up the way they did with the little backstage thing where Andrade's saying, he's telling Conan that he has someone more important, and of course that gets the buzz going, and everyone's thinking, okay, is it Ric Flair? But then a lot of people and some of the people
Ric Flair. Yeah, there's some other ideas like possibly Roosh or another one of his friends from Mexico, and heck, it turns out that Andrade's fiance was backstage at TripleMania.
Yes, well,
which that would have been something.
Could you see? That's where, like, just think about this. If WWE allows something like that, they don't have to do it on every single scenario, but if they allowed that once a month, just in a random place, location, the amount of goodwill that would give them would just be, I don't think they even realize how much goodwill, but they don't care. No. It doesn't matter. They have that's just the way it's always been, is Vince wants to be able to control everything he can control. He doesn't want anything sort of outside of that, and I think that just speaks to that situation. But I really did. I thought it was one that, again, going into the match, you knew what to expect because it was a Kenny Omega match, and I think that Andrade, for someone who was on his sixth match since last year, basically last October. I thought he did very well, and it's one of those where now, just like something else we're going to talk about in a second, it's like you want to see this again, and that's, I think, the biggest point here is we're going to see this match again probably at some point, whether that's in AAA, whether that's AEW, but they sold you on wanting to see it again, and that's where I think the Flair and Conan stuff, like that can sort of help further, I think, the eventual rematch that these two will have.
And the Ric Flair versus Conan match down the road too. TripleMania 30.
TripleMania 30.
I don't know if Conan can grow out some hair for the hair versus hair match or not. That'd be interesting.
Once in a lifetime. Ric Flair versus Conan. TripleMania.
A rematch 30. Of God, they had a match. What was it? Was it like Bash at the Beach 95?
I was going to say, I think it was
Bash
95.
It's one of the bashes.
Yeah, I want to say it was 95 from what I can remember. That 95, of course we just
Flair beat Conan for the U.S. title.
Look at that.
Yeah. So there's some bad blood there, I'm telling you.
Twice in a lifetime. Only this one would
Twice
be
in a lifetime.
26 years later. But so that was good stuff. I thought that just the whole presentation, everything, Andrade's entrance, I thought, man, it just looks like such a star. And then, of course, you have Ric Flair come out with him, and that only adds to the presentation there and just how they portray him. But I thought that was huge for him, just to have that match, even though he doesn't win. Like you said, I'm not as over the whole thing with Omega, retaining the title and everything. Here's what I thought they would do, which I guess we can kind of transition in a second into. We'll talk a little bit about Rampage, but there are a couple other things we'll discuss from TripleMania. But I thought that after Omega loses to Christian on Rampage and loses the Impact title, I was thinking maybe they would go the route of, okay, he loses again. He loses 2 titles in 24 hours, and then you just really have this delusional Kenny Omega come out and just this completely off-the-wall type guy who just continues to add to his character. I thought maybe they'd go that route to where basically the only thing he has left to hang on is the AEW title, and he's just hanging on for dear life, depending on whether he loses that. I don't even think he's going to lose to Christian, but the eventual match with Hangman or someone else. I thought that was the way they were going to go, but now I think it does make it makes it more interesting, right? Because he keeps his title, but like you said, it's not as though AEW is going to be just pushing this particular title. Like, this isn't something that they're going to be pushing on television, so it's going to pretty much I think, the casual fan, you're going to be looking at this as though, okay, Kenny lost the Impact title. Yeah, he's still got the AAA, mega title here, but the AEW title is everything. They pushed it that way, so I just don't. I thought maybe they'd go that route, but just because they didn't, I don't think it really hurts the story overall that much.
It was interesting. I kind of thought they would as well. I mean, just to have his life kind of falling apart around him, the belt collector losing all his belts at one time, which I think that part of the reason they didn't go that way is because, I mean, the guy hadn't lost a match in like 20 months or whatever. Maybe 2 in 24 hours might have been a bit much. I don't know. But I don't think that Kenny losing here would have taken away from him in the eyes of most of the populace. And I think winning helps a little bit, but it's honestly, I think the bottom line is that as far as having a AAA mega champion that comes in every once in a while and builds some buzz for the internet, I think Kenny Omega is the right guy to do that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for AAA, I think. Just, either way, I don't think you can go wrong in either scenario. But, keeping the title on what many consider to be, perhaps the best wrestler in the world, I don't think that's anything.
And the fact that people thought he was going to lose kind of helped it too, which I think Kenny losing the night before kind of helped that match.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people thought that crap, Kenny's going to lose all the belts now.
Yep, that's a good point, and we'll talk about that in depth a bit more here in a second. Obviously from again, like the American promotion standpoint, the other stuff on TripleMania, where you had Deonna Purrazzo, she becomes the double champion, beating Fabi Apache, like we said. So now she's got 2 belts. And then the triple threat tag team match, which I think everyone expected probably to be the match of the night if it wasn't going to be Omega and Andrade, where you have the Lucha Bros retain the AAA tag team titles, and of course Brian Cage and Taurus. Like, I just thought that's one of those teams until you actually see it. It's like you don't really think you need it, but once you see it, you're like, I want more of that. Like, that was just, you knew this was going to be the kind of match it was, but I thought it was just, my goodness, all action. And the Lucha Bros once again prove why they're one of the best there is. Just that was fun.
They're two of the best, and of course you can't forget about Vikino and Laredo Kid either. Those
Yes.
are two of Mexico's best right there. And I think once they get to appear more often, I think you'll definitely be hearing a ton more about both those guys.
Yeah, I think so too. It was that is one for sure. If you want to pick and choose, if you don't want to watch the entire card, which there's entertainment. I mean, if you just want entertainment, you're not gonna have any lack of that on Triple Mania. I think that's normally the case.
You had an iguana win a match, man.
Yes, I
An
think
iguana won a Royal Rumble. It's pretty great.
Ric Flair versus Mr. Iguana is the match that I think everyone's
That
calling
might
for.
be that might be the money match right there. Um, how did you feel? And there's two schools of thought in this one too. How did you feel about Kenny Omega and Andrade not going on last, with the main event being a Psycho Clown and Rey Scorpion with the mask versus hair match? Which I know online that there's a lot more buzz behind the title match, and you could see on the viewership how it fell after Kenny's match was over, and not as many people cared as much about this. But I know in Mexico, much bigger deal of Psycho Clown and Rey Scorpion. Psycho Clown, of course, the son of the late great Super Porky. A very emotional match there. Rey Scorpion had an issue of Super Porky in the past as well. So, I mean, for that crowd, I think for that crowd, I think it delivered. I know it's probably not something we here up here cared as much about, but for that crowd, it worked.
Well, we know how important mask versus hair matches are. Like this isn't like a WWE thing, right? Like where we, it's. I think this is like our elusive show that we're going to get to eventually. But the Judgment Day 02, where it's Kurt Angle versus Edge in a hair versus hair match. There's a little bit more prestige probably involved with the Psycho Clown and Rey Scorpion match than there was necessarily with that one. So I don't have a problem with that. I think from the beginning, I expected that to be sort of the main event, anyways. I know for some people thought that having Omega and Andrade to our to the American audience, sure, I'm sure that would certainly have the most appeal. But the mask versus hair matches, I mean, this is one too where like they've built this up and built it up and built it up. I mean, really, you think about it, right? In the comparison between the build, like this Omega and Andrade match, just because of the limitations that you discussed earlier, there wasn't a whole lot you could do with the build in terms of what they were able to do. Meanwhile, you've got a mask versus hair match that, again, is just such a bitter sort of, aggressive rivalry type thing where, I mean, I think it makes complete sense why they wouldn't have did it that way.
And also, one of my pet peeves when it comes to American wrestling one of these things that just drives me nuts is when these guys who have they have long hair for a very long time, and one day they just show up with it gone.
Yeah,
And that drives me nuts because I always believe there's something you could do there. You could have a hair match. You could have an angle where a guy gets his head shaved or something. Like when Baron Corbin went from having his long hair to nothing, they could have done some kind of match where he lose the hair, and that would make him even more of a deranged heel or whatever. It's just one of those things that always drives me a little nuts.
Did you, and we'll move on to AEW Rampage, did you see the opener with the Marvel Lucha Libre match where, they have the tie-in with Marvel and all that? Did you see the entrance? Oh my goodness.
I did see the entrance,
Okay.
yes.
I have never, I don't think, Steve, I've ever seen anything like that before in terms of I think it was Arachno was the one who did this. He comes from the top of the arena upside down. And the whole way, it's not like it's one of these smooth things where he just keeps going. Like he's just having to, and it was like, I mean, I don't even know what to think. I'm thinking if this is the opener and this is how we're starting things off, I was a little worried for what was to come. Which, by the way, also included one of the wrestlers. I don't remember which we know too, and people mention this, and we saw it after the Lucha Bros win. But it's one of those things where they'll bring in like their family and such, like little kids come in and all this stuff after matches and all that. But one of the competitors, I don't remember which match it was, but it was one of those where I looked at something else for a second, then I came back to the feed, and all of a sudden I see one of the competitors with this very small child. Like I assume this kid was 2 years old or less, but he's standing on the turnbuckle with the child held out like Lion King style, and it's just one of those visuals you come back to that really hits you there. So Triple Mania was entertaining. I will say that. Like even if you're someone that has never watched a AAA show in any form or fashion, I think you would find a lot of entertainment out of this because there is so much variety on these shows, and this is mostly the case every year, but I think now, especially because of the partnerships and relationships we see, obviously, with Impact and AEW and all that, there's a lot more appeal just to probably the American fan. But even if not, like some of this other stuff was fun. It wasn't, your 5-star match or anything like that, but it was entertaining. I'll give it that. So.
That's all you say, and it's like that every year, pretty much. TripleMania, the top show in Mexico, and I am a Lucha fan. I don't get to watch as much Lucha as I would like to, due to the television situation and whatnot. But it's always been one of my personal favorite styles of wrestling, and I'm one of those folks who doesn't think that pro wrestling is just one style.
Yeah.
There's Lucha Libre. There is pure wrestling. There's deathmatch wrestling. It's a nice little buffet, a little something for everybody. And I'm not one to look down on different forms of the pro wrestling.
No, like what you like. That's what I always say. It doesn't matter what stars I give it or Steve gives it or anyone. Just like what you like. You don't have to force an opinion on anyone or have an opinion forced on you from anyone else. So it's up to you. And there was another notable thing here, which if you had kept up with the news stuff, which we put a story out of this on 4-1 Mania about the trio from CMLL who had just basically up and left. And it was like such a huge deal at the time, and no one really knew, what's the reasoning here, what's going on. But then, they show up at TripleMania, they beat up Mr. Iguana to get to beat them. That's the ultimate heel heat right there.
Yeah, when you beat up Mr. Iguana, that got everybody upset right there. I don't think most of us had ever heard of Mr. Iguana before this match, but after that match, he became, the most over performer in wrestling. And those gentlemen come down and beat up Mr. Iguana. That made them the top heels in the promotion. I don't care who you are.
Well, that's a huge deal too. Like this was I don't even know what you compare it to, but if you think,
I've heard it compared to if the New Day all of a sudden shows up one day in AEW Impact or whatever.
Yeah. So like a really
something like that,
because they had been sort of stalwarts in CMLL for the past several years and had really been featured as a top act. So for them to show up like that, that's a huge deal. And too, and we know like AAA and CMLL, there's no shortage of
that forbidden door is not getting open.
No,
I'll tell you that. That's not happening.
You think WWE and AEW is something? This is one, as we know, it's been going on for a long time in terms of the relationship between those two and the battles and everything like that. So that was another huge deal. It really was. Like, it was a very notable show when you look at all the things that came out of it. So good stuff. I mean, I would highly seek it out and rewatch it if you have time, because I thought there was a lot of good stuff on the show. A lot of variety, of course, and you always get that with TripleMania. All right, Steve, let's go back to Friday night, which was the debut of AEW Rampage. And one of the things that stood out to me was I didn't realize how much I really needed a 1 hour primetime sort of professional wrestling show that just felt like the 1993 era of Monday Night Raw. That just goes by so fast. But of course, AEW I think had a few more competitive matches than Yokozuna versus Jobber, probably in '93. But this was, I mean, it was, again, you talk about everything coming out of it. Like, you have that 1 hour to work with. And I thought they were just so effective in using everything in that hour to basically do everything they could. I know the strengths of that show was the opener with Omega and Christian. I thought the Fuego del Sol segment was terrific. It just kind of brought out some of that real emotion that you don't always get in wrestling, that, everything doesn't have to be overly scripted and everything to produce a pretty cool moment. And I thought the main event was solid. I mean, I thought, Red Velvet, I think, give her credit. I'm not saying this was a classic match or anything, but for Red Velvet having to basically flip her character and play the heel on Britt Baker, which that dynamic was kind of weird just because you knew you were going to have that in Pittsburgh. But I thought it was a very good debut edition of Rampage, even though, this time next week when we're talking about CM Punk at Rampage, that'll probably be a little bit different of a feeling. But I thought it was a nice show.
Yeah, as far as, and we'll start with the main event because why not? The Britt Baker and Red Velvet is a decent match. And I know you go in there and Britt Baker's the babyface. It's Britsburg and all that stuff going on. So the match was fine. I was not a fan of the post match because I felt they're just trying too hard to make her a heel at that point. And with all due respect to Jamie Hayter, who I have nothing against her, I'm sure she'll have some positive things to contribute to AEW down the line. I mean, putting her in that spot, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it at first because I didn't remember her. And then you had a bunch of people online who thought it was Becky Lynch, which I did not pick up on, but I thought wouldn't it have been hilarious if Becky Lynch somehow shows up as Britt Baker's heater?
Yes.
Like, wouldn't that be like that would have been tremendous? But no, that's not what happened there. But so I thought I was not a fan of the ending there. Just and I don't know if that worked too well or not. Well, I mean, we'll see how it goes down the road. I know Britt's gonna be the heel and whatnot, but I think they're just trying too hard there. And of course, they weren't gonna boo her anyway, so
Yeah.
Is that what I have to say about that?
I think you said it. I think it's trying to maybe jam too much into the circumstances in the scenario. I think was a big part of this. Where I get on one hand why they would want to do that. They want to re-debut a character in sort of the biggest way possible. You know, your first big AEW Rampage and all that. And certainly you're not going to do it next week because there's no chance that anyone's going to remember a lot more outside of CM Punk. But I think there's also the school of thought that it was something where, like you said, I've obviously seen her before, but I had no idea who this was until like you really sort of get that strong visual. If you've kind of kept up with her, over the past it's almost been 2 years, I guess, at this point.
She was around in the very early days of AEW.
So you would like really have to keep up, probably via Twitter or stuff like that, or just really kind of keep up with what she's been doing. But it was one of those that I think, like you said, if you do that in, I don't know, like if you do that in Los Angeles versus Pittsburgh, maybe it's like a different thing because the Britt Baker scenario and all that, like you said, trying to sort of make her a heel and everything. But I guess you're also thinking, this is part of your TV time you have to build up to All Out and everything. So I can understand why they did that. But I thought the Jamie Hayter thing was just maybe trying to add a little bit too much in that you could have maybe put in a spot elsewhere. But I mean, I think there's a couple different ways you can go with that. But I can understand the criticism on this. So.
And then then there's some other criticism to be had, which I don't particularly agree with, but I'll mention anyway. The Miro and Fuego del Sol match, which I thought was fantastic. Fuego hitting that tornado DDT a couple times. You didn't think he had a chance, but it's fun. It's fun. It was fun. He had a few seconds there, and Miro just kind of kills him, and he tears up the contract. Which, by the way, I gotta tell you, I'm kind of sick of seeing contracts on wrestling TV shows these days. Because, God, WWE has so many contract signings. They did one on Friday night as well. There's so much to talk about contracts. I'm kind of sick of it.
And they don't understand how they work, right? Like, you can just steal a contract in WWE, so.
Yeah, God, yeah. That kind of drives me nuts. But so they make the deal like, well, if Fuego wins this match, he gets an AEW contract, and if he loses the match, he doesn't. And unfortunately, I know some people complain about it because they went back on the damn stipulation. You can no longer believe stipulations AEW because Fuego del Sol still got signed by AEW, which, I didn't care as much because it's Fuego del Sol. I like the guy. It's cool. I'm happy he's on the team. But they could have avoided all that by not having a stipulation like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe they thought and I don't know if it even added that much to the match because honestly, the TNT Championship should have been enough.
Right.
And one would assume that if he won the TNT Championship, he'd be on the show more often, right?
Sure.
I would think
he would have to be on the show. I think
unless he's just going to leave, unless he's just going to leave with the TNT title, like CM Punk did with the WWE Championship.
Yeah, he's going to pull a Medusa.
That'd be something.
He's going to take the TNT title to WWE Raw and throw it in the trash. So
yeah,
that's shots fired on that. No, I liked it. I thought the match was I think it was 2 minutes long, but. Like you said, somehow in that 2 minutes, you didn't think Fuego was going to win. Yeah, you didn't think he was going to win, but they at least sold you on a couple different things there. But like I mentioned, I felt like sometimes not everything has to be just overly scripted. Like AEW, I think does a good job with some of these things. Like just if you're going to give this guy a contract, just do it. Like just do the segment, hot crowd. Have Sammy come out and do it the way they did. I mean, I thought it was effective, and that again to me is what separates AEW apart. If we are making the comparison from WWE, yes, they've done stuff like that before, but it just one feels very rigid, in terms of how things were structured and presentation, all that. But like that felt like a real, not overly produced moment. And I think that can go a long way with your fan base sometimes, because now you give people a reason to invest in Fuego del Sol, which, by the way, there's probably a lot of people that don't watch Dark or Dark Elevation or any of these, and maybe they don't watch Sammy's vlog, right? Like, they have no idea who this guy is. But in that, whatever, between the 2-minute match and the commercial break and the 3 minutes after that, I mean, they now have a reason to care about Fuego del Sol. So I thought it was very effective the way they did it. And then, of course, we have to talk about the changing, which we kind of mentioned earlier, but Christian winning the Impact title. And I know, Steve, there was a lot of thoughts on that, just because everyone didn't think that this was the right move, that Christian was this boring competitor and contender and all this. But I again, if you talk about effectiveness, that the way they did this at Rampage, I think, sold you on the match at All Out. Whereas vice versa, if you're going to do that match at All Out and you're keeping that, Kenny winning this match gives me no reason to be invested in Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage at All Out if I've already seen Kenny Omega beat him once, right? Like, that's the logic we use when we criticize companies who do that. I mean, it now that you think about it, it's like it makes sense, and it actually gives you a reason to care about this match, even if in the back of your mind you pretty much know that Omega's probably winning this thing.
A lot of things going on here. The history with Christian Cage and with Impact Wrestling, that was a key point here, because we know that TNA was where Christian pretty much turned his career around, where he became like a top-notch guy, a chance he never got back in WWF back in the day. And once he got to Impact, he became like, Captain Charisma. He took a step up to the next level. So that company, that championship, very important to him. So that is a good part of the story there. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's because we all wanted to see the Hangman. It might be. I mean, I wanted to see Hangman versus Omega too. But I don't know when we decided that, like, Christian Cage is like this piece of garbage that shouldn't be challenging for any title anywhere. Like, when did this happen? I thought people on the internet like Christian. Is Vince McMahon like all these message boards now with these multiple accounts telling people how terrible Christian is? Because I thought the only person who hated Christian was Vince. That was always the story. Like, Vince never got Christian, and everybody else did, but Vince never got him. And now we have a bunch of people out there who are Vince, I guess. We would decide, oh my God, Christian Cage is the worst. He's like the least over person on the roster. All this stuff that's just does not translate to what I see on television. It's weird. It's a head scratcher for me. And of course, the match, as you would expect, with Christian Cage, who, despite what people might tell you, is actually a pretty good wrestler. You put him there with Kenny. Two smart guys know what they're doing. And, man, that kill switch on the chair, that was a nice finish, too. I like that. Yeah. That was good.
It was good. I feel like now you have a reason to be invested in this match for them. And like you said, it's not like Christian just straight up beat him clean. Like, there's obviously something behind that. And I know a lot of people, it was the big thing for a lot of people is what you talked about earlier about Kenny Omega's been this dominant belt collector. Who's going to be the first person to pin him? I think everyone, sentimentally is wanting that to be Hangman Page. They're wanting that to be the case. But, I mean, you can say it this way, right? Like, AEW has presented the Impact title as the lesser title, which, I mean, from AEW's standpoint, that makes sense. Like, your title is the biggest title. And so for them, if you're looking at it, this is not as big of a deal as Kenny losing the AEW World title eventually. So yeah, I felt like it exceeded expectations. I didn't know what direction they were going to go in. I think that was a good thing. It left a little suspense and kind of made you think about how are they going to do this, and are they actually going to have this match twice in the span of 3 weeks. But now, like, I would like to see that match now twice in the span of 3 weeks. So they give you that. So yeah, I thought it was a nice debut episode of Rampage. But as we mentioned as well, it's going to be fun to talk about this one for a couple days. But now all of our focus goes on to the first dance in Chicago on Friday, when who knows how this thing's going to unfold. But AEW has hyped this up like no other when we will see CM Punk make his return.
What happens if CM Punk doesn't make his return?
Here's my
scenario.
Do we
all just, okay. I mean, what happens? Do we just close up AEW right there?
Tell me this would not be the one of the biggest moment or the biggest moment in the history of wrestling here in our wrestling fandom. We come out, like, you have Cult of Personality hit, the people are just losing their minds, and then Tony Khan sends out a mini CM Punk. Like, it's like the whole mini Booker T and all these other things. Or he just hits the music, and then no one comes out, and then Tony Khan comes out, and all of a sudden we've got Vince McMahon circa, 98. Tony Khan has decided that he wants to be the evil, heel on the show, the authority figure, and all that. I mean, there is no scenario like at this point. There's just, I know people keep saying that, but I think the reason why, Steve, we think about this is, I think it's WWE has put this mindset in us that not delivering on like these huge things. But yeah, that's just the unfortunate part of it, I guess.
You don't think that if MJF comes out to call a personality and cuts a heel promo on the fans, you don't think that's gonna? I mean,
that would be
over,
genius.
But,
I was gonna say that actually would be genius if you're gonna bring out Punk after that. That would be a genius way.
Yeah, if you're not bringing out Punk at all, though, like if somehow negotiations fell through and you just have MJF out there cut a promo, like man,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a 99.9% certainty we're gonna see CM Punk at AEW Rampage in Chicago, and if not, congratulations to WWE because they're gonna be in good shape. So yes, but we will talk about that, of course, this coming week. Friday night Rampage, the first dance should be quite a scene, and as AEW has hyped it up, the television event of the year. So we will see if that turns out to be the case. But for now, Steve, I know you've got a lot of stuff over at 41mania.com. I know you have a lot of stuff in the works. Anything you want to plug as we head into a new week in professional wrestling?
Oh, well, I mean, we did the Impact recap. We're going to do the ROH recap pretty soon. I got a busy week, man.
You got to get to SummerSlam 2000 too. So.
Oh my God, we got SummerSlam coming up. We got it's crazy. Yeah, SummerSlam. We completely forgot about SummerSlam because of Rampage and because of TripleMania, because of everything else. It's just, man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
This is a wild 2 weekends in wrestling.
So just go to 411mania.com and there'll be stuff people will write. Right? Yeah, probably.
What a plug.
People will be there.
There will be stuff that people will write, and people will be there. I don't know how to say it any better. So 411mania.com. Check it all out there. News, columns, reviews, everything up there. Like Steve said, we've got a lot happening, and we'll have it all covered over at 411mania.com. And as always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Any podcast app you use, search for 411 on Wrestling, and also leave us a nice 5-star rating review. That just helps the show reach more people. And we will continue to have the link to the GoFundMe for Larry Sonka's family in the show notes, so continue to share and contribute to that if you can. And as we said, everything else, 411mania.com. But thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time here on the 411 on Wrestling Podcast.